This conference will now be recorded.
Can anyone of you confirm that you're able to see the screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
we're able to see.
Okay, so yesterday we have started with demo session, right? So we have discussed a few important things yesterday as well. What is performance testing all about, and what are the various tools in the market? What is the LoadRunner architecture? In that architecture, what are the various components? And then we have seen a sample record and replay of a particular script. Okay, and then we have discussed about the course content. Okay, so in today's session, we will be discussing about the different types of performance testing. I do have slides, the PowerPoint slides to go through each type of performance testing. However, for today, I prefer to uh, write the running node sort of thing in the notepad itself. Okay, I'll share those slides if required later. Uh, so when it comes to the definition of performance testing, the generic definition of performance testing, uh, it was all about checking the performance of a software application by applying some load, right? I told you yesterday, like without applying load, you cannot say that it's a performance testing. Okay. Now, if I am, let's say, if I want to know how the application is responding, whether the application is uh, slow or it is responding good enough, quickly. If I log in and if everything is fine, that doesn't mean that the application is fine. I mean, you have to check when multiple users log in. Okay, depending on the requirement. Let's say 200 users, 300 users, when they concurrently log in, okay, and perform various activities. Let's say out of 200 users accessing the application, let's say 100 users are performing some action. Let's say if it's a banking application, some users will transfer money, some users will download bank statement, some users will uh, pay credit card bill and so on, right? So load is important. The term load is important. So load, here we can refer to it as number of users. Okay, for now we can say number of users. Okay, and generally performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. Okay, so what are these three terms? How these terms are related to different types of performance testing? We'll discuss. Okay, so for example, let's begin with okay. First I'll mention the different types of performance testing. First one is a load test. Okay. Second one is stress testing. Okay. Second one is stress testing. Third one, endurance testing. Endurance, or you can also call it as a soak, or you can also call it as a duration testing also. Okay. The meaning is same. You can call scalability testing, uh, volume testing, failover testing. bike testing. Okay. See, I mean, these are good enough. These types of performance testing. Good to have some knowledge about these. So it doesn't mean that we will be testing all these, in our projects. Okay. Every project, we will test few of them, not everyone. All types of performance testing we won't do. Uh, According to my experience, most of the projects they perform load test, endurance test, and scalability test. Okay. Nowadays, this failover testing is also being included. I mean, slowly slowly project started adding this. Okay. Now, let's discuss one by one. And before that, uh, we will be discussing all these types of testing today, except failover testing. Failover testing we will discuss tomorrow. The reason is, to discuss failover testing, we need to understand the meaning of servers. What is a server? What is a web server? What is an application server? What is a database server? So tomorrow's session is all about servers, right? Because day in, day out, we have to use the term server in our performance testing projects. So without server, there is no performance testing project itself. So first we'll understand the concept of servers, and then we'll understand what are the different servers, okay? And then we'll discuss failover testing, okay? Now let's start with load test. What is a load test? Load test is all about checking the speed of the application, okay? Checking the speed of the application by applying load. See, when I say speed of the application, how fast the application is responding, how fast the pages are loading. Okay, now let's say you click on a link or you click a button, then how fast it is navigating from one page to another page. Okay, so that particular thing we'll check here. So the response times, yesterday we discussed, right? Response times should be 2 seconds. Okay, on industry standard. That means when you click a link or you click a button, you should navigate from one page to another page in 2 seconds. So let's say I'm opening some application. Okay, so let's say I'm opening this Google. Now when I open Google, see, when I just click that link, okay, and it redirected to this page in hardly 1 or 2 seconds. Yes. So if I click on, like, for example, if I type uh, Isha Training Solutions and just click enter, see how fast it is coming. Okay, and here also, if I click on Isha Training Solutions link, actually it should load in 2 seconds. Okay, but some of the projects, depending on their project architecture, the client will be okay to accept the response times as 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Sorry, 3 seconds or 5 seconds also. See, this page also loaded almost, like, within 2 to 3 seconds it loaded, right? So uh, response times means the amount of time taken, okay, by the server to send the response. Okay, so basically 2 seconds is the industry standard. Okay, now here you know the meaning of load. Load means number of users. Okay, then how much time, what is the duration for this test? How much time it will be run? So load test will be execute, executed for 1 hour, steady state, study time, whatever it is. So basically what it means is, uh, the load test you will have to run for 1 hour. Okay, like let's say you want to run a test with 100 users. Okay, these 100 users, okay, should be active. All the 100 users should be active, and then you have to run for 1 hour, exact 1 hour. and then you should slowly bring down the users. So this 1 hour is a steady state or steady time. Okay. So in this 1 hour, you're trying to analyze the performance of the application. Okay. So we run load test for 1 hour, steady state. Okay. While I'll clearly tell what is steady state or steady time later, but just understand that it will run for 1 hour. Now, what is that you identify from this? So bottlenecks, bottlenecks in sense the issues. What are the different bottlenecks you can identify? High response times. Okay, high response times, server issues, server issues. Okay, so basic things. These are the basic things that you have to verify. Are there any high response times? Okay, you have to monitor the servers, how the servers are performing in terms of memories, CPU. Okay, related to CPU, memory, etc. Okay, so these are the things that we verify. So have you ever heard about a performance test? And if you already have little knowledge about performance testing, so you'll be well aware of the process. Okay, so if you're completely new to performance testing, just follow the understand the points. Try to understand the points what we are discussing. The same points we'll try to replicate in practical sessions as well later point of view, the load testing and all. Okay, even we will do a load test, 1 hour load test. Okay, at the later point of time once we master scripting. Okay, we will also use those scripts to run for 1 hour and see how the application is performing. Okay, so that is about uh, load testing. 1 second, guys. Any questions so far? So I told you right here, performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. So speed is something related to load test. Okay, checking the speed of the application by applying some load. Speed in sense how fast the application is loading, how fast the user is able to navigate from one page to another page, and so on. Load means number of users. Response time, what is the industry standard? 2 seconds is industry standard. Okay, load test will be executed for 1 hour steady state. Bottlenecks that you identify is high response time, server related issues, CPU memory related issues, and so on. Okay, second one, stress testing. Okay, okay, stress testing. What is stress testing? So stress testing is simply testing the application with more amount of load, okay, than the load test. Okay, for example, here number of users, if I take some example as, let's say for example, 500 users. Okay, I'm just telling the example, 500 users. Okay, now stress testing means simply testing the application with more amount of load than the load test. I mean, than the amount of load that you applied in the load test. For example, here you applied 500 users. So like 600, 700, 800, anything can be stress testing. Okay, that means testing more number of users than the load test. Okay, so you can mention the same point. Testing the application with more number of users than the load test. See, the name itself is suggesting, right? Stress. That means we are applying stress on the system. See, load test will be done with the peak users, peak volumes, okay, given by the client. Now, who is going to give this number to us? Okay, who is going to give this number to us? Okay, hey, you have to test my application with 500 users. See, either client can give you these numbers, or the business analyst team can give you these numbers, or Even the dev team can also give these numbers to you after discussing with business. Okay. Now, whatever the amount of load that we applied during the load test, so stress testing is nothing but simply applying load more than that, with more amount of users than the load testing, or users, or you can also write like this: applying more load on the system than, okay, applying more load on the system than load test. So basically, uh, whatever the amount of load that you apply in the load test, let's just apply more, little more than that, like in terms of number of users and all those things. What is that we verify here? Again, response times, load test, all these are same. Okay, there is no change. Okay, you have to verify. See, when the application is being stressed, how the application is responding. Okay, and sometimes what happens is, uh, the requirement the requirement can be, like, stress the application, okay, until it breaks. The requirement can be something like this also. That means you have to keep on increasing the number of users, okay, and see where exactly it is breaking. Okay, breaking in sense, at some point of time the servers will not be able to handle the load, and the servers will crash. Okay, server crash, or issues related to CPU, memory, and so on. See, okay. So I hope you might have understood the difference between the load testing and stress testing. Okay, so it's all about applying more load on the system and see how it is responding. Okay, um, if your client is asking you to check where exactly the system is breaking, you have to keep on applying the load. Like, let's say, you begin with load test, you run with 500, right? So stress testing, let's say you start with some 600, you can go with 800, you can go with 1000, okay, 1200, like that you can test and tell client where exactly it is breaking. Okay, so you can increase the amount of load, no problem. Then third one is endurance testing, very very important. Now, endurance testing or soak testing or duration testing, okay, whatever it is, the meaning is same. In different projects they call it with different names. Okay, in my project currently we are calling it as duration test. In the earlier project, okay, like, in other companies they used to call it as soak test. Okay, so no problem, the meaning is same, whatever it is. So here what we do is, here we check the stability of the application. Here we check the stability of the application. What do you mean by stability of the application? So when you run the test for longer duration, how the application is responding. Okay, uh, run the test for longer duration, like 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, 1 day, 2 days, etc. So I'm not saying that every application should be run for 5 hours, 8 hours, 1 day, 2 days. It depends. Okay. Let's say currently in current project, whatever I'm supporting, okay, I am running an endurance test of 3 hours. Previous project, whatever I used to work, uh, there I used to run for 8 hours. Okay. So what does that mean? When you are running a test for longer duration, you have to check the performance. The performance should not degrade. Okay, for example, you are running the test for 5 hours. In the first 1 hour, you are getting some good response times, like 1.5 seconds on an average, like 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, like that. It should continue to be the same throughout the test. I mean, it cannot be like in the last 1 hour, the response times are 10 seconds, 8 seconds. No, that means the application is not stable enough, right? So when you are running the test for longer amount of time, then how the application is responding, that is the important criteria for us here to test. Okay, then for how long we run, we know this. Then response time is again common industry standard or according to your business requirement. Okay, then uh, load test, okay, done. So what are the different bottlenecks? So bottlenecks, high response time, server crash or issues related to memory and all. Okay, and then we also identify something called memory leaks. Okay, which is very very important for interview point of view also. What are memory leaks? How memory leaks occur? So if in the interview they might ask you, okay, have you ever seen a memory leaks in your application? Yes. How did you find? In which type of test that memory leak was identified? So basically, most of the memory leaks will be identified in the endurance test only because we are running for longer duration. When you are running for longer duration, there is a chance that I mean there is a separate concept called garbage collection. Okay, so there's a chance that that particular garbage collection mechanism might not work properly and tend to you know or overuse the memory, and there's a high chance of memory leaks. We will discuss. We have a separate session for that, anyways. Okay, but as of now, what I can say is, uh, in endurance test, there is a high chance of finding out the memory leaks. Okay. Now, one more important question is, what is the amount of load that I have to apply for this? See, in the load test, I told, let's say the number of users given by client. Okay, this is peak load. Okay, peak load given by client. Okay, peak load given by client. Now here applying more load than the load test. Here there are two things. In some projects, okay, in some projects they use 100% of the load. What is I mean let what 100% of the users. Okay, whatever you used in load test, same number of users. In some projects, 75% of the users. Okay, from the load test. Okay, some projects will use 100% users from the load test. Okay, some projects will use 75%. So it all depends on project to project case. Okay, now let's say you are working in a project, in an existing project where they are following some process, either this or this, you follow that. But if you are the one who have to take a decision, I suggest you to use 100% load, because generally people say, like, you can test with 75% users. I mean, I know there it's a debate, but what I personally feel is, when I'm running a load test with 100% load, that means this 500 users, why should I reduce the load when I run for longer duration? When my application, I'm running the test with 100% load, that is this 500 users for 1 hour. Okay, and and if I want to run for some longer duration, why should I reduce the load? That is my point. Okay, so the load should remain the same, and it should run for longer duration without any stability issues. Okay, that's what I feel. That's the reason I personally choose this whenever I test in my projects. Okay, very very rarely I've seen some of the people using 75% of the load also, but it's up to you. Okay, if you are the one who has to take a decision, use this. Okay, now one more important point I forgot to tell. Uh, the very first major type of test that we run is load testing, guys. Okay, that's the reason I explained this first. Now, if this test is a failure, okay, then we don't run other types of tests at all unless and until this is a success test. So if this test is success, then we can move on and run different types of tests, okay, according to the requirement. But if this test itself is a failure, we cannot run other types of tests, okay, because other types of tests is somewhere or the other dependent on the load test. Okay, for example, stress testing means applying more load, okay, than the load test. First of all, load test itself is a failure. How do you apply more load than that? Here also, checking the stability, running the test for longer duration. When you're running for 1 hour, 1 hour load test, when this itself is a failure, how can you run for longer duration? So you're getting the point, right? The dependency. So load test is very, very important. This is the first major type of test that we run. Okay. So I'm gonna mention that point. Load test is a base for all other types of tests. Okay. If load test is successful, okay, then we have to perform other tests. Okay. Hope you understood the point. Any questions now? Any questions so far in these three? Did you understand endurance testing? Very, very important.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, in load test, how many minimum users or maximum users we can apply load?
In load test, the number of users they will be provided by client ma. So client. So basically, what happens is, again, it's a different scenario. Multiple points will be taken into consideration. It all depends if it's an existing application or if it's a brand new application. Okay. So day after tomorrow, we have a separate session on understanding, you know, how to handle an application which is an existing one, how to handle an application which is a completely new one. That means how the client is going to give this number to us. Okay. Um, at least the client should give some target to us. Okay. I mean, so how the client is getting that number. Okay. For example, I'll tell you one small point. Okay. Let's say it's an existing application. Okay. Let's say in the month of January, you ran the load test. Okay. With some number of users. Okay, or let's say last year you ran the load test with some number of users. Now, again, after 1 year or so, they reached out to the performance testing team and they are now asking us to run the load test once again. Now, what they will do is, to, not what we will ask is, okay, give the number to us, give the load that we have to test. What is the amount of load that we have to test? We will ask. How they'll get this number is, they will check in the last 6 months or 1 year. Okay, during which month or which day more number of people access the application. What was the highest number of load in the last 1 year? That number they will pick and they will give it to us. How do they pick that number? By using some analytical tools like Splunk, data analytical tools like Splunk or SQL. Okay, they will go and check the historical data, and then they will get the number to us. Okay, that will be our peak load. Okay, why am I saying peak load? Because that was the max amount of load in the last 6 months or 1 year applied in the system. So that peak load we are testing, okay, as part of the load test. So again, there's a different scenario. If it's a brand new application, how to handle, we'll discuss that day after tomorrow. Okay, any questions? Hope you got some idea about how they are giving us the data.
Uh, 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 if they ask us to do the three types of testing, they will only give us the users, right?
99%.
Okay.
99% they will give us the 99% they will give us the users. 1% there's a chance that they will not give users. In that case, they will give a different input, like how many uh, you know transactions we need to achieve per hour. Okay, so a different kind of input will be given to us. Based on that, uh, you have to calculate the number of users and you have to run. Okay, I'll tell you how to calculate that. later in our upcoming
And
session. I'll
the
definitely
process
say.
is same for all these three, and only execution is different, right?
Yes. Process is same. Execution is different. The configuration of scenario will be different. Here the number of users are different. Here the number of users are different. Here the users can be different or same, but duration will be different. So only minor changes will be done in terms of creating a scenario in controller or load runner enterprise. Okay, then you have scalability testing. So as the name suggests, it is all about checking the scalability of the application. Okay, checking the scalability of the application, basically by considering future growth. Okay, so now uh, what happens is now you are on a load test. Okay, with this number of users. So this we call it as 100% load test. Okay, you can call it as 100% load test. 100% load test. We can use this term. With how many number of users you tested? In okay, 500 users as per above example. Okay, now what is future growth? Basically, what client will say is, hey, okay, as of now, 500 users is my peak volume, but in next 1 year or 6 months, I'm assuming that my business will grow by 50%. Okay, the client will say something like this. We are assuming my business will go by 50% in the next 6 months. So now what we have to do, considering the future growth, we have to test, okay, with that particular number now itself. Okay, so consider future growth as 50%. Okay, suggested by client. Suggested by client. Now itself, now itself, we have to test with 50% increase. So what is 100% is 500. What is the number which if you add 50% to that? 750 users. Yes or no? 50% of 500 is 250, right? So now in future, okay, there might be a growth of 50% suggested by client. So let's try with 750 users and see, okay, and see how the servers are responding. So I'll tell you one practical example. Why I mentioned servers are responding is when you say the term scalability, it's all about how scalable are your is your infrastructure. So I'll tell you one example, recent example, a real-time example. We all know the pandemic, right? So during pandemic, I think in the year 2020, in the month of July or August, I guess. Okay. So one day client called us. There was a meeting. I was supporting for one of the at that point of time I was supporting for one of the you know project. Okay, banking project. The client called me and said the client called us and said like no. Uh, because of pandemic the users the banking users are not directly going to bank, okay, rather they are using online applications, the banking applications. That means they could see a huge increase in the number of users accessing the banking application. Okay, even we did that, right? We never went to bank, we tried to handle most of the things online, right? Now what the client said is considering the pandemic to be there for next few months or years. So what they thought is the number of people accessing the banking application will definitely increase. So what they said is in the next 3 months, in the next 3 months, the number of people accessing the banking applications will increase to increase to 400%, increase to 400%. And then the client said for all the important critical applications, okay, we were supporting multiple applications at that time. So for all the important applications, okay, the list provided by them, they asked us to check if the application is supporting 400% load or not, because they assumed, okay, they anticipated that the users will increase to 400% in next 2 to 3 months. The people accessing the online application during pandemic. Now tell me, what should what should we do as a performance tester? Can anyone tell? No, what you understood what the client told us? Can anyone tell what should we do from our end now? Anyone? Just guess. Okay, it's a common, it's a discussion, right? Just tell what should we do now?
Just we need to do the stress testing, and we need to identify the breakpoint of an application.
No, here the client didn't ask us to identify the breaking point. Uh, client said client said my users will reach to 400% in next 2 to 3 months because of pandemic. So what should you do now?
You must have done the load testing before, so you increase your load by 50, like 400%, whatever the percent they're telling.
Exactly.
And
So
even
so because that's an existing application, right? Suddenly pandemic came and we had to check the performance of that. Okay, so load testing was already in place. So now what client is saying is, okay, uh, example, if client is asking you to test uh, the application, okay, okay, then what we have to do is, see, basically you cannot directly run 400%, guys. See, 100% load test, let's say we ran for 500 users. Okay, let's take this example only. Here 100% load test we ran for 500 users. This is 100% load test. Okay, now directly you cannot run 400% load test. That means 2000 users we cannot run directly like this. Why we cannot run directly like this? Can anyone tell why we cannot run directly like this?
Maybe backend
server
side servers are not capable this much of
maybe
load.
server can be crashed.
Okay, okay, good point only. But the thing is, if you directly run 400%, okay, let's say if it fails, then can you guarantee that it is working for 200% and 300% at least? No, client will ask you, okay, no, you went to client and said 400% is failing. Now client immediately will ask you, is it supporting some 300% at least? No, we don't have answer because we don't know. So that's the reason you have to go step by step. Every time, uh, every time if the users or the volumes are high, don't directly go and test the max. Okay. So here what we did is we ran a 200% load test. Okay. And then if this is successful, then we ran 300% load test. Okay. 300% load test with some 1500 users. And if this is also successful, then we ran this 400%. Now, for all the applications, whatever we ran, some of the applications withstood this amount of load. Some of the applications crashed here itself. So, whatever the applications crashed here, we immediately notified the client. And what client did at that point of time, can anyone tell? Just guess. I mean, I'm not saying no because we are learning, right? It's just a discussion. Now, what will
They
generally
will
client do?
increase.
they need to
Yes, he will
modify the
increase.
infrastructure.
Yeah. So immediately, see, it doesn't have time. I mean, he cannot ask, the client cannot ask developers to see where they can improve the performance. Like, can they tune their queries more? Can they tune their code even more, even better? No, they don't have time also to look into those aspects. For first thing they have to do is they have to increase the infrastructure capacity. So there you have two things like scale up and scale scale up and scale out. Okay, scale up and scale out. So scale out means I think when you add some more servers. Okay, so let's say you are having two server instances, and now you are adding one or two more just just to handle the amount of load. Okay, but in some cases what will happen, instead of adding new servers, okay, they increase the capacity of the existing server, like in terms of RAM, CPU and all those things. So that case, that is also possible through scale up. So whatever it is, the decision will be taken by them. Okay, so tomorrow we'll discuss, I'll show you through the slide, I'll explain you through the slides like what is scale out, scale up. Okay, what happens exactly, why we need to increase the amount of load, how the load will be distributed, what is load balancer, okay, what exactly it will do, all these things we'll discuss tomorrow. Okay, hope you understood about these different types of testing. Okay, some of you might still have like 10-15% doubts. No problem, you will understand it slowly as the course progresses. You'll definitely understand, because we every day we keep on using these terms. Okay, and you'll definitely understand quickly. So any question so far? One is volume testing. Don't do this volume testing frequently. It is actually kind of validating database performance. So volume testing is nothing but it is 100% similar. It is almost similar. It is similar to load test. Okay, except that huge data will be inserted into database. Okay, into database. So it is similar to load test. So when I say similar to load test, everything will be same. Yes or no? Everything will be same here. I just copy pasted. Speed we will verify. Load will be same. Response times will be same. Load test, test will be executed for 1 hour. Yes. Bottlenecks we verify the same thing. Okay. Um, Apart from memory, actually, apart from high response times, we verify. Uh, we verify. Uh, verify SQL queries and procedures performance. Okay. So this is the main thing. What is this? What is this? Did you ever heard about SQL? I mean, you know, right? What is SQL? Is there anyone who doesn't know anything about SQL? At least they didn't ever heard about SQL. Structured query language. They use queries, right, to access database. Let's say I want to pull some data from database. How do you do it? You use SQL queries. You might have seen some these sort of queries in your college days also. Let's say select star from employee, so and so. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
You might you might have seen this query. So these sort of queries performance we have to analyze. Like, is there any queries which impacted? Okay, because of huge data that we are inserting into database intentionally. Okay, what exactly we do here is, let's say in load test for our application in database we have 1 lakh records. Okay, now uh, basically what happens, when you continuously use the application, the amount of data in the database will obviously increase. As the time progresses, maybe after 1 year or so, the data will definitely increase drastically. Maybe the number of records can increase from 1 lakh to, let's say, 3 lakh or 4 lakh records in after 1 year. Now, considering that, now itself we will intentionally insert like those 3 lakh or 4 lakh amount of records in database with the help of database administrator or developer, and then we run the load test. Okay, when you have that huge amount of data added in the database, inserted in the database, then you run the load test and see the performance. So basically where the performance issue might come, the performance issues might come in terms of SQL queries and procedures. Okay, these queries uh, can have some performance degradation because of huge data, okay, in the database, right? So think, I mean, basically think normally. So for example, you have this drive, okay? Let's say you have this drive. Now here, if I want to search something, let's say here I have only 3 files, okay? I want to search something here. How much time it will take? Hardly it will take 2-3 seconds to tell whether the file is found or not found. If I have huge data here, so many thousands of files I have, folders and files I have. If I want to search something here, it will take more time. Yes or no? You guys might know this already. It will
Yes.
Yes,
definitely
sir.
take more time. Yes. Similarly, in the database, if you have more amount of records, and when you're trying to search something, when you're trying to perform some action, it will take some time to respond. And that performance issues might come because of these SQL queries. I'll tell you one more example. Let's say there is a university, college university. Let's say, let's say this is the first time, this is the first year, okay, the university started. Now, university admin should store the information somewhere in the database. The information related to the students, the information related to the staff, the information related to the employees, various employees working, the information related to the um, different courses, the information related to the fee structure, everything they have to store somewhere in the database to pull. Okay, if they cannot handle nowadays in this generation, you cannot write everything in files, you cannot keep it everything in files. Now everything we are storing in system, in sense it is in database, it should be in database. Now let's say after 10 years, I mean for their in the college website, I mean after 10 years, in the first year, let's say there are only some, let's say 2000 or 1000 students in their college. After 10 years, because of its brand value, the number of students maybe let's say they increased from 500 or 1000 to 10,000 students. Now imagine the database will contain records of 10,000 students, staff, previous students, okay, courses, fee structure, okay, transport department. So many things will be there in university. Now the amount of records will drastically increase at that point of time. Then also your performance should not degrade. The university application website should respond fast, right? That's what I'm telling. So when you have huge amount of data in the backend database, the performance should not degrade. Okay, so that's what it means. So so it is similar to load test, except that huge data will be inserted into database intentionally. For example, uh, if you have 1 lakh records in database now, uh, volume test will be done by inserting uh, like let's say 3 lakhs. Again, it depends on client input, but I'm just giving example. By inserting 3 lakh records of data with the help of a DBA or developer. So DBA means database administrator, because they have complete control over database. You cannot insert data into database as a performance tester. You might have a read access, but you cannot have a write access to that. Okay, only write access will be given to DBA or developers. So with the help of them, you have to upload the data. I mean, upload the junk data like all 3 lakh or 4 lakh records. So hope you understood what is volume testing as well. This type of testing we don't do frequently. Okay, very rare, depending on the requirement. If you ask me, sir, when did you test last time? I tested almost 1 year back. Okay, so it depends on project to project. It depends on requirement to requirement. Okay, I know there are some performance testers. Okay, Recently I took interview for, I know the candidate has 6 years of experience in IT, specifically into performance testing. But that guy, as of now, only tested load testing and endurance testing. That's it. Because they in their projects they didn't use other types of testing. It seems that's okay, pretty much okay. Okay, it's not mandatory that we have to test. Okay, if you ask me, sir, is there any project which does only load test? Actually, it shouldn't be like that. But trust me, the project which I'm doing some freelancing now is they are doing only load test. They're not doing any type of testing now. Okay, even when I suggested to do these things, they're not ready to do. Okay, so that's fine. I mean, if the client is asking you to test something like load test or something like that, you can go ahead and test. But sometimes what happens, the client will not be aware of these performance testing concepts completely. In that case, they will only ask us. Okay, they will only take our input. In that case, what you have to suggest is, by load test, endurance test, scalability test, you can suggest. Okay, why? I mean, go with the definition. See here, performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. Speed, load test; stability, endurance test; scalability test. So if these three tests are done, I mean, the application will be good enough to perform in the real time. Okay, that should be done. That should be enough. Okay. In other rare specific cases, you can go ahead and test other types of testing. Now we are done with these things. Failover testing we'll see tomorrow, because we have to understand performance servers and all those things. Actually, I have to explain with a diagram. That's the reason. Okay. And then we have spike testing. Spike testing. Actually, spike testing. Anyone heard about spike testing, by the way? I mean, this is also something which we don't do it frequently. But the overall idea of spike testing is to suddenly increase, okay, or decrease the users. Okay, you got it? Sudden increase or decrease, okay, in terms of user volume is called spike testing. So what we do here is we'll apply some extreme load and we'll decrease the load immediately. For example, I will run the test. Okay, let's say I run the test at 9 a.m. I start the test at 9 a.m. Okay, let's say with 100 users. Okay, okay, that's fine. At 9:10, let's say after 10 minutes, suddenly I add another 100 users. Immediately I'll add. That means there will be a huge spike like this in terms of number of users. The application will receive huge amount of load suddenly. Suddenly it will receive. Then, okay, immediately, okay, after 1 minute or so, I will immediately I will remove the number of users. Suddenly decrease the number of users like this. Then application will now will see a sudden decrease in the amount of load. So now when you see this sudden increase or sudden decrease in terms of load, how the application is responding, okay, it's all about spike testing. Okay, so what happens is, when there is a sudden increase in load, extreme increase in load, how the servers are responding, that is the important thing that we have to verify. Okay, most of the cases, uh, when there is a sudden increase, there is a high chance that you might get a bad response times, and there is also a chance of application getting crashed also. Okay, so this is also one of the type of test. Okay, we will do it only if there is a requirement from client, otherwise we will not do it. Okay, any questions? Testing the application, okay, by increasing the load suddenly. Okay, testing the application by applying extreme load, you can say, by applying extreme load. Okay, so this is enough, okay, for to understand different types of performance testing. So tomorrow we'll discuss failover testing. I do have slides, guys. I mean, I will share it later. I mean, there also we discuss the same points, but in slides. Okay. So let me check where it is. Somewhere here it might be there. See here, something like this. Okay. So we do have slides for this. And it's not like we don't have. So I'll explain you clearly. Practically I'll show you like what each type of test, how it works, how to configure that in controller. Okay. So for now, why did I use Notepad is so that it can be used as running notes, and we can discuss even little better than the slides. Okay. So when I type something, you will have a clear idea like what is that we are discussing here. Okay. Uh, I thought that this is a better approach. That's the reason I took Notepad for today. So any questions? I'll save this. I'll send it. I'll send this also to you guys. Types of performance testing. Okay, I saved this Notepad file. Any questions? So yesterday, what did we discuss? Yesterday we discussed what is performance testing, load runner architecture, and some sample record and replay. Today we discussed types of performance testing. Tomorrow we will be discussing about what is a server, why software architecture is important. Okay, what happens if you're not aware of software architecture? What is a server? What is entire architecture? What is web server? What is app server? What is DB server? What is scale up, scale out? What is load balancer? What is protocol? Okay, so all these concepts we'll discuss tomorrow, because uh, you all know, right? Performance testing means server issues. Server, server, server. Any questions?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, you have given example for 400 user 400% from the client example, right?
Hmm.
Whether
Hmm.
we have to consider as a load test or a stress test as it is increasing 100%, 200%, 300%.
It's a kind of stress test, but end of the day, you are checking for your infrastructure scalability, right? So that's the reason they term it as scalability test. Yes, some of you guys might have doubt, like here also we are increasing the load, and in stress test also we are increasing the load. What is the difference? Difference is there. Here, a slight difference is there. Here, you are increasing the load considering the future growth and checking how scalable is your application, how much scalable is your application. Okay, how much load it can. I mean, is your application handling the load? Okay, considering the future growth. Okay, there you don't have any number in stress test. Just test your application with little bit more number of users. Okay. Uh, Otherwise, if your client has some specific requirement, like test until it breaks, you can test it. Then there is no specific term that generally client doesn't use some specific terms. Like they can say that I want to run a test, okay, and see where exactly it breaks. You can just create a stress test scenario and then run it. Uh, when I say stress test or scalability test, I mean from controller point of view, the way you create the scenario is almost same. Okay, there's only a slight difference. There is no major difference at all. So in both the types of testing, we increase the number of users. Uh, in one in one test, we consider the future growth. Okay, in one test, we simply uh, apply some more stress. Okay, more stress in sense, little more stress, or it can go to an extent where it can break also. Okay, it all depends on client input. That's the reason we have to understand the client requirement first. What client wants. Then based on that, you can take a call. Okay.
Okay,
So
sir.
the name scalability testing or stress testing doesn't matter for us. In fact, if you go and see various projects that you are working, they don't even use these terms. They simply test it. Okay. So here and there, they might it can overlap. You can see you can see that you can see it as a from scalability point of view. You can see it from stress point of view. That's fine. But end of the day, you have to test what is client asking for. Client will never say, did you run scalability test or did you run stress test? No, client will ask, did you how the application is responding with this amount of load? Okay, so like that the client will ask you.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so we'll discuss tomorrow. As the course progresses, you will get more clarity about these things. Any other questions for today?
Yeah. Hello, Rishit.
Yeah, tell me.
Nowadays there are two more type of tests which I hearing, throttling and resiliency test. Can you just give a info about that also?
Resilience is nothing but failover testing only, kind of failover testing only.
Okay. And throttling is it something which is required for mobile testing or
Can you spell it?
specifically for
Can you
mobile or
spell?
all kinds of applications?
Can you spell
Throttling.
it? Uh,
Yeah, I will.
SO.
No,
Yeah,
throttling,
can you?
TH.
That is spike testing only.
Okay.
I mean, I told you right. Different terms they use in IT. Okay, kind of spike testing
Okay.
only. Throttle testing. Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Is there any prerequisites for performance testing?
No, not required. Anyone can jump into performance testing space and they can start working on it.
And do you have any combinations of testing, like volume or load testing, so we can do at a time?
No, at a time we won't do.
Okay.
At any point of time, we will run only one test. Okay. See what happens when you for the same application you cannot run two types of tests at the same point of time, right? So that application will crash immediately in that case, right? So let's say I want to test for Isha Training Solutions. If I run a load test for Isha Training Solutions now, if I start a load test for Isha Training Solutions application, I cannot run an endurance test parallelly. No, no, it won't work like that, right? So run at any point of time you have to run only one test, and first test is this one load test. If
Load
this
test.
test is successful, you can run any other type of test depending on your requirement. If this test is a failure, you cannot run any of these. Now you can ask me a question: how can you say a load test is a failure then? Okay, so load test will be a failure. Here I'm writing the point. Load test will be uh, a failure if number of failed transactions are greater than 2%. Okay, directly, I mean, basically you run a test, and if the number of failure transactions are more than 2%, it's a failure. The test itself is fail. For example, I'm running a test, and after running the test I got some 20,000 transactions. Okay, uh, what is 2% of 20,000? 400. If your errors or failure transactions are more than 400, the test itself is considered as a fail, and you have to find out why there are so many failures. And if it is a scripting issue, you have to fix it. If it's an application issue, developers have to fix it, and then you have to run the test again. Okay, and then if your results contain very high response times, if your results contain very high response times, that is also kind of failure only. Okay, so these
Okay.
things you have to take it into account to consider it as a failure. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
so let's continue tomorrow. uh, I hope you understood today's session, and I hope to see all of you in the upcoming sessions as well. Thank you and have a great rest of the day.